Hey everyone, it's Carolyn. Welcome to the channel. Today we need to have a little bit more of a serious discussion. I want to talk about psychics and our involvement with true crime. So I think by now we've all seen that TikTok psychic who has a whole defamation case against her. Basically, if you don't know, this psychic named Ashley went on TikTok and used her tarot cards to predict the killer of the Idaho students. She said it was this teacher, but it turns out it wasn't. It was, I believe, a student at the school. There's a lot of people who have talked about her a lot more in depth than I am going to be talking about her in this video. So I'll have those videos linked in the description box down below so you can go ahead and gain more information if you don't know who she is. But basically, she said it was this person. It turned out not to be her. And so I want to talk about psychics and their involvement with true crime, especially on social media. Because the thing about Ashley, I think that she exposed a lot of red flags when it comes to psychics who are using it either for clout or to scam people. And so I want to talk about this psychic relationship when it comes to true crime and their involvement in it. Now, I think that psychics can help out with true crime, and I think that they can be very insightful if they know what they're doing and if they're being respectful. And I think now with the rise of social media, we're seeing people who are blurring those lines and not doing it for the benefit of the victims. They are doing it for the benefit of themselves and their wallets. And so that's something to be very mindful of. And this doesn't just happen when it comes after a tragedy. This happens in general with psychics. There's a lot of scammers who will prey on people who don't know what a psychic red flag is. So first I want to talk about that. But in order to do that, we need to talk about psychic, tarot readers, and mediums. A psychic is someone with divination abilities. A medium is someone who connects with spirit and is able to pass along their messages or tap into their energy to figure out what happened to them. And then a tarot reader is someone who uses tarot as their divination tool of choice. And so basically, all mediums are psychics because they have psychic abilities, but not all psychics are mediums because not every single psychic chooses to work with people who have passed. And not all mediums and psychics use tarot. They can use their other psychic abilities, or they can use different divination tools. And so just because someone knows the right words to say doesn't necessarily make them legit. Now I want to give a disclaimer as someone who is a part of the psychic community, the tarot reader community. Not everyone is like her. A lot of people are legit. They're very upfront with their abilities, and they don't embellish what their abilities can help you with. Tarot and other divination is used as a tool. I always say that my goal is to help everyone develop their own sense of intuition so that you can all make the choices that are better for you. So when I'm doing my psychic readings, every single reading I do is meant to help you understand yourself better, connect with yourself better, maybe give you guidance so you can hear the pros and cons of a situation. But it's never my goal to steer you on a certain direction. That is for you to decide. And I don't claim to do readings on things that we simply can't control. I won't do a 20-year future reading because that's something where we don't know how the future, the trajectory is going to change in the 20 years by the choices that you make. I can look at your current trajectory and tell you what you're on track for and what things you might want to be mindful of in order to avoid them. But I can't give you a definitive this will happen in 20 years because energy and time is always changing. And so that's something to keep note of if you are looking to connect with a psychic to give you messages, is what are they promising you? What are they saying that they can deliver that is actually just nonsense? And oftentimes I find that legit psychics have a code of ethics. And now this isn't like a code that every psychic has to follow with specific things of what you can read and what you can't read, because that's different for everyone. But a code of ethics is what that reader is comfortable reading or giving messages on. It is what they have decided their boundaries with their own crafts and abilities are. But when you are reaching out to get a reading from someone, they should let you know what their boundaries are. And let's say that you have a question that they're not comfortable reading, or there's a reason why they can't give you that answer. They should explain it to you of why they can or can't do it, or why they don't want to do it, instead of just doing it for the money. Because just like any other service, you're going to have the things that you are able to do, you're going to have the things that you really excel at, and then you have the things that you know you're not good at doing, or you're not good at picking up on those messages. And so it's not fair for them to offer that to someone if they don't have the skill set to do it. And so be mindful when people are putting these big claims on themselves that they can't necessarily back up. And now when it comes to doing mediumship, there's very respectful ways to go about it. And so obviously, like, you'll have people who reach out to you who want you to do mediumship, and that's fine. That's where you're working with your clients and they're going to set the boundaries and you can work out what you're comfortable doing with them and not. But when this is something where you're reaching out after a tragedy, after something has happened like the murder for the Idaho students, there's a lot of red flags that a lot of scammers will use to benefit themselves. And so the first thing is, if you're thinking about reaching out to the family or the loved ones of these people after a tragedy has struck because you want to give them a psychic reading, I would advise against that. A lot of times that's what scammers will try and do, to prey on their families at such a vulnerable time. And that's just a really horrendous thing to do. I don't think anyone should be doing that. If you are going to reach out, do not ask them for money. To me, it feels like if you were to hit someone with your car and then you stitch them up because they cut their leg and then you demand money from them right then and there. It's very scammy, and it's something where it's like, you did this, you went to them and you opened that wound up and you used it to put them in a vulnerable situation, and now you're asking them for money. If you're going to reach out to someone, that should be a free reading if you're even going to actually read for people. Don't reach out wanting money. That's not how you can get clients. If you are doing mediumship readings and you want to grow your clientele, use social media and show your abilities and work with people and get your clients to leave reviews. But don't seek out people and force them to pay you for service. If their families, if their loved ones want to get a mediumship reading, if they want to use psychics and their abilities to give them closure, that's for them to seek out. They can do the research themselves and they'll find someone who's appropriate for them. But a lot of times there's so many people who will just go and use those situations for themselves and for their own gain, and I just feel like that's extremely distasteful and disrespectful. And also, as we saw with the TikTok psychic and with other people who are on social media, if you are doing mediumship readings, I personally, it's my opinion, you should not be posting them online. I feel like there's no reason why you need to be monetizing off a tragedy like this just because you have psychic abilities. To me, if you truly want to help and you're doing like a mediumship reading and you actually think you have information about the case and you want to get that out there, you can call the police tip line. And now I know a lot of times they are not going to rely on psychics. I'm sure a few will, but they typically have relationships with those psychics and they know their legitimacy. But let's say that you genuinely, like, you have advice from a mediumship reading, you want to help out, you have the best intentions in the world. Call them, let them know what you're thinking. Even if they don't believe you because you're a psychic, if you have good information, if you have information that makes sense, majority of the time they're going to follow through with it, not because you're a psychic, but because you gave them a lead that actually checks out. And through their own investigation, they're going to put the puzzle pieces together. So that's what I would really suggest. If you feel like you can help out in some way, go through the direct channels to do so. Don't post it on social media if no one has asked you to. If the family or their loved ones have come out and said, hey, like, we want any advice, the police aren't helping us out, and they want it on social media, that's a completely different story. But for the people who are not asking for help, don't do it, because to me it just reads as you're doing it for clout. You're trying to gain attention off of this tragedy, and not even like in this case specifically, I just mean in general. When you're doing psychic readings, that is not for the collective. That is not like a message that's like, if this showed up on your For You page, and it's not a message of like, here's like a reading that I'm doing here on YouTube, like I do pick a card readings and stuff. If it's not like a general thing with whoever watches it is going to get it, if it's for someone specifically and you're posting that and you're using like a vulnerable situation against them, I just think that's not tasteful. I don't feel like that's actually helping anyone, and I just personally, I get really icky vibes when I see people doing that, because it does not feel like it's coming from a pure place. And so if you were someone where you found you've done that before and it is coming from a pure place, maybe just rethink your approach. And another thing to note is that not all divination tools are created equal. And not to say that any divination tool is good or bad, but they all have their different uses and their different purposes. Something like a pendulum is going to give you yes and no answers, so it's very black and white. And that's why a lot of people who are doing mediumship readings will choose to work with them, because it will tell you yes or no to it. Whereas with tarot, it's a little bit more fluid. The cards each have their individual meanings, and they're not exactly linear. They can mean multiple different things. And so you have to have a very strong sense of intuition to make the message make sense. Now, I'm not saying that no one can do mediumship readings with tarot, but they have to be very skilled at what they're doing. It takes a lot of practice, and it's something that not everyone is able to do. Not everyone who is a psychic is going to be able to be a mediumship and get accurate readings. And so just be mindful of the divination tool that's being used when you are receiving your messages. Because, for example, if someone is new to tarot cards or they're new to mediumship and they pull something like the Five of Pentacles. The Five of Pentacles represents an energy in which someone has kind of been left out in the cold. They're on their own and they do not have shelter, they do not have comfort, and therefore they're struggling to figure out resources to make their life secure at that moment. And so it's kind of like they're dealing with a loss because they are unprotected. And so if this comes up up in a mediumship reading, this could be representing vulnerability of the immune system. It could be representing disease, but it also could be representing that they were unable to protect themselves, and so therefore something happened to them that was kind of something that they saw coming, but they didn't protect themselves from, and then something terrible happened to them. And so there's multiple different meanings just from that one card alone. That's not even all the meanings that one could think of with that card. That's just an example. And so you have to be able to be very skillful with your mediumship abilities to know which one that is. And a lot of times when we see people who are doing things on social media just for clout, they haven't actually developed their psychic abilities in the best way. They're just trying to pump out the messages to keep people hooked. And a lot of times you'll also see that they have a tendency when they're doing their readings to tell people only what they want to hear. You'll see on their pages that they don't really post anything that's a negative meaning or calling anyone out and giving them actual advice. A lot of times they don't really believe in shadow work. And so you'll see that they're not actually focused on the side of their psychic abilities that is helping people when it comes to calling them out and seeing the harsh reality of things. They're more so focused on keeping people hooked with messages they want to hear and making it where they keep feeding into the cycle where they feel like they're dependent on the psychic's message for it. And that's why a lot of times you'll see these scammers reach out with true crime and use it as a way to gain clout, because they're saying things that the media wants to hear, that we want to believe about these cases, but they're not actually saying anything new or revolutionary. They're saying things that the public generally thinks about these already. Or as we saw with this psychic TikToker, they pick things that have yet to be proven so that people will see the hype and just take them at their word and believe them because there's no facts to disprove them. And so you'll see it either with like brand new cases where everyone's trying to solve it before the detectives with their psychic abilities, or you'll see these psychics pull out cold cases and claim that they're solving it, that they're giving the answers for it, because it's a cold case. It has not been proven, and so there's no way to say if they're right or they're wrong. And especially because there's so many theories about what happened, a brand new theory into the mix doesn't sound that crazy. It sounds like it could be plausible, and we just don't know. And so that's how these psychic scammers will get you, because they're not giving you anything that can be disproven. Now, I see nothing wrong if you are wanting to learn mediumship and you are new to it. I feel it's fine if you want to use true crime to practice your own abilities, where you pull cards if you read with tarot cards, or you use your psychic abilities for ongoing cases or even cold cases, and you make your predictions of what you think happened, and then as they begin to be solved, you see if you were accurate, if you weren't. If you want to share these within your friends and your family around you, that's fine. I think it's okay if you're keeping it just within your circle versus if you're sharing it with the public, because when you're keeping it just in your circle, that's genuine curiosity that we all have, and it's also you just trying to practice. You're not claiming anything to like a grand amount of people where you're trying to like prove your psychic abilities to them. You're not misleading people and stating this is what I know for a fact happened. A lot of times you're going to explain like, yeah, like I was curious, this is what I think happened. And so you're not making a claim that is going to ruin anything if it turns out to be something defamatory like we saw with this psychic, versus if you're putting it on public like social media, or you're getting a mass amount of attention for it. To me, that's more of a red flag, because the motivation is completely different. That's not you practicing, that's you making a claim. And so all of a sudden it goes from it being your opinion to something you're just curious about, to something you're just practicing, to something that you're now taking a stance on. And so there is a way to use true crime with your psychic abilities in a respectful way, but it's about making sure that you don't cross those boundaries. And so using it for practice, you know, what goes on behind closed doors doesn't really affect anyone. And so there's ways that psychics can work with true crime in ways that's beneficial to everyone by actually giving solid advice and going through the proper channels, but also using it to practice for yourself in ways that are respectful and don't cross the line. And so I think as a community, we have to call out, and I've seen some people already call out this TikToker and the psychic community, which is really good, but I feel like as a community, we do need to call out people like Ashley, because this is not okay. Like, you can't just use people's trauma and turn it into something where you're trying to profit off of, and then you also can't like go and defame people and make these allegations without facts, because the thing is, ultimately, when it comes down to psychic abilities, you're going to make a mistake. People are going to misinterpret things, because you're not always going to be correct 100% of the time, and that's okay, but it's not okay when you're doing it in a way that hurts someone. And so that's where we just have to make sure that our psychic abilities are not crossing any lines. We're remaining ethical with our approach to them. And so if this is something that you've done before and you genuinely did not have bad intentions. That's okay. You're not a bad person. Now you know, and just don't continue to do it anymore. And for those of you where you are looking into getting psychic readings done, now I hope this gives you the tools you need to see the red flags for certain psychics and the content that they're producing. And for those of you where you are following people who have displayed any of these red flags, I would really encourage you to step away from viewing their content and start to focus on psychics who are actually doing things in a way that is respectful to everyone and support them instead of the people who are only chasing clout. And for those of you where you're just watching this for the entertainment, I'm glad that I was able to have this talk with you. I hope that this helps you see that not all psychics are like Ashley, and that we do care about the people that we're reading for, and we don't want to end up hurting others. And so those are my opinions on this situation. I would love to hear what you think about this, and I hope that I was able to teach you with this video what's appropriate and what's not when it comes to psychics and their work with true crime. And so if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and share with others who need to hear this message. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. I would love to have you part of this family, and make sure you turn on that bell notification so you don't miss out when I post my next video. I post new videos every single week. I do more videos like this, but I also do readings. I do past life readings, pick-a-pile readings, and collective readings, along with other educational videos to help you all learn your own psychic abilities. And if you're trying to learn tarot, I have a really fun playlist where I take pop culture, TV shows, and movies and relate them to the tarot cards so that you're able to understand them better. And so basically I take the scenes and the characters and their energy, and I explain what tarot card is associated with them. And so it's kind of just a little bit more of a relatable way for you to understand the cards. And so I'll have some of my videos linked in the cards above. Like I said, if you want to learn more about this TikTok psychic, I'll have other videos from other YouTubers in the description box down below. And I can't wait to see you all in my next video. I hope you all have a good one. Until then, bye.